My name is John Keegan and I'm an alcoholic. And this is another man I had the privilege of filming in September 2004, Tosh. And unfortunately we lost Tosh, 13 months ago. Very sad passing. Had a really tough life and came back. And it's a great example for anyone who's had it rough. There's no hopeless case. You can come back. You can come back and have a good quality of life. And Tosh will tell you how. And I hope you're up there, Tosh, with God, where you deserve to be, a very spiritual man. I'll hand you over to Tosh. Thank you very much.
Hello everybody, my name's Tosh, I'm an alcoholic. I come from Northern Ireland, come from a wee town called Oma, and I grew up in an alcoholic home. My father was an alcoholic, my mother was in mental hospitals, and as a child I grew up with a lot of fear. And my father used to drink, and I remember one time when I was a boy coming along the road, and I see this hat in the ditch, and I thought, Jesus, that's my old man's hat. And about 3 or 4 yards ahead, it was my old man. He was lying there drunk, and I was horrified. And my mother used to run after my father, and she used to like try and save him, and go down and get him. If he was lying down the road, she would bring him home and look after him. And when I was a wee boy, I used to watch him fall in the fire, drunk, and I was terrified. And I didn't know what this alcohol was, but my father loved to drink, and cigarettes, and but my mother used to run after him and try and save him, and but eventually she used to say, leave him down the road, let him die. Do you know what I mean? And as a kid I was like horrified that one minute she was like trying to save him, and then she was saying, let him die, I don't care, he's no good, and all that there. And I didn't understand this, didn't understand alcoholism, and I didn't understand all this like saving them and then not caring and all that there. But I understand all this now, because you can't help an alcoholic. And I grew up as a child terrified, and I see my old man falling, hitting his head in the concrete and all this sort of stuff. And but I couldn't wait to leave home, and when I was 15 I joined the Royal Navy, and I couldn't wait to get away on the train, and I thought I'd leave all this behind me, and forget all about like everything that happened, and I'd enjoy myself. And but when I was on the train I was involved in fights with people, and the only way I could handle things was to fight with people, and I was very angry, and I didn't know it, and joined the Navy, and I spent 3 years in the Royal Navy, and I was very shy person, and painfully shy. I couldn't talk to girls and all that, and but I didn't know this. I didn't know. I thought I was always trying to like be normal, and I thought I'm like anybody else. But I wasn't. It was different, and I didn't know it was different. I didn't know I come from an alcoholic home, and when my father got up in the morning, he didn't say good morning and all that there, and how are ye and all that sort of thing. My father was like never said anything. Was always like uptight, and during the week when he had no drink or cigarettes and all that, he was very angry, and you couldn't talk to him, or he didn't talk. I remember times walking past my father in the street, and he never even said hello, and I thought, like, there's something, I couldn't put my finger on it, but there was something he couldn't communicate. And when I was in the Royal Navy, I couldn't communicate with people. I couldn't say, like, excuse me, or like, I would say, can you move out of the way, or like, get out of the way, or whatever. And like, people didn't like this, and but that's the way I was brought up. I couldn't say things. It wouldn't come out. I just couldn't. I remember one time there was a rule on the ship where you had to ask somebody if you could come in and take something out of somebody's locker. And I remember going in, and I couldn't ask. I couldn't knock the door and say, "Can I take something out of my mate's locker?" And I couldn't say it. I went and opened the locker, took the thing out, and this guy said it was on a charge, that you're not supposed to, like. And he was actually giving me a chance to say, "Well, I'm sorry," and all that there, but I wouldn't say I was sorry. Or he said, "Right, you're on a charge," and I said, "What are you on about? On a charge?" You know what I mean? And see, everybody else could do it, but I couldn't do it. I ended up telling them to F off, and was put on a charge. And at any minute I could have said, "Sorry, look, forget it," but I wouldn't. And I thought it was a stupid, pathetic. My pride wouldn't let me say sorry, or like, "I'll do it again," and lock the door. And that's the way I was. I couldn't, because I wasn't brought up like this. I wasn't taught like life skills. I wasn't taught to interact with people, and so I couldn't. The truth was I couldn't, but I didn't know I couldn't. I didn't know there was anything wrong with me. I didn't know I was different from other people. I didn't know I was an alcoholic. I couldn't fit in, and but I carried on trying to bluff my way through life. I put on a front, and like, I never fitted in. Everything I done, I felt it wasn't me, and so after about 3 years in the Royal Navy, I was sent to see a psychiatrist in Singapore, and because I couldn't stick to the rules and all that there, and I'd actually had a nervous breakdown, cracked up, and I was closed up on action stations, and I was supposed to be wearing a gas mask, and I tore the gas mask off, and I said, "I'm not playing this game no more," and all that, and was put in a charge, and court-martialed, and I just had enough of it. And so I couldn't laugh, or I couldn't, I had no sense of humour. I couldn't, like, I couldn't take life light-hearted. I couldn't have a joke with people, and but I could when I was drinking. I could laugh and all that there. I needed a drink to laugh, and to let go, and to go to sleep, and because at night I had everybody in my head, and was actually sidetracked by resentments, and like, instead of doing what I was supposed to be doing on the ship, I was full of resentment. I was going about thinking about the resentments and what I was going to do to people and all that, and people used to laugh at me, but I couldn't laugh. I couldn't find it funny, or like I couldn't. I'd be always saying, "I'll see you later, mate," and all that. "We'll see you off the ship, and we'll sort this out." And people were laughing and all that there, and like everything I said, people would laugh, and I thought they were taking the piss out of me. And I used to talk back the front, and when I used to have to get on the microphone up on the bridge with the captain, I used to talk back the front, and people used to think this was hilarious, and my Irish accent and all that, and but I didn't think it was very funny, and but at the same time, everybody liked me. People took me home on leave, and things like that there, and when I went home on leave, were people, they used to wreck people's houses and blackouts, and one particular guy said to me before we went on the train, when we were leaving his house in Hull, he said, "I'll tell you what you done when we get on the train." And I thought, well, I don't want to hear this. And all I want to do was to have a drink and forget about all, because my weekend was a total blackout. And when we got on the train, he told me that I'd smashed a dog's dish through the window in this girl's house, and had urinated up his stairs, and he had two young sisters of 12 and 11 and 12, and all this sort of thing, and I couldn't believe it. I thought, why would I do that? And because I couldn't remember, I thought, I don't understand that, and I didn't want to hear it. I sort of knew it was true, but I didn't want to hear it, and so I'd never spoke to that guy again. I give him the elbow, and so my mother used to like wait for me to write from the Navy and all that, and I never wrote to my mother, and the captain used to write from the ship and say that I'd be found dead in a gutter from drinking and all that, and because when I left home I gave my mother the elbow, I thought, well, this woman's put me through all this hell, and I don't even want to write to her, and so I never wrote to my mother, and I thought that my mother was the cause of all my problems, and when before I left, she beat the crap out of me with a cane across the shoulders, and I was going, go on, and all that there, and was blanking out the pain. I never really felt the pain, and I left home like full of anger and resentment and self-pity, and I didn't really know where I was. When I was in the Navy, I hadn't got a clue where I was. I was all screwed up, and I couldn't relax, slow down, and ask myself what I was doing or where I was going, or like as soon every opportunity I used to get drunk, blackouts, and wake up in strange places, and I didn't know what was wrong with me, and I never thought I was an alcoholic, and I didn't actually think my father was an alcoholic, because like I had an idea that alcoholics were rich people that could get a drink, and like doctors or lawyers or landlords of pubs, they could drink all night, or like doctors they had plenty of money, and like people that had loads of money and all that there. But my father hadn't got any money, so I thought, well, he couldn't be an alcoholic. He's never got nothing. He used to drink on the weekends, but looking back at it, if he added the money, he'd be drunk all the time. And so I had an idea that alcoholics were like well-to-do people. I can see that now, that That was my perception, because I didn't want to think that I was an alcoholic. And on the ship, when I was getting court-martialed, the captain of the ship said, "You're an alcoholic, or becoming an alcoholic." And I laughed. I went, "That's impossible." Do you know what I mean? I thought he's talking. I thought, how could an educated man, like a captain of a Royal Naval ship, come to the conclusion that I'm an alcoholic? And I was thinking, I can't get a drink. I couldn't be an alcoholic, and can't drink all the time. And but he was right. Looking back through hindsight, that man was absolutely right. He knew that there was nothing he could do with me, only discharged me out of the Navy, because I'd been to see a psychiatrist in Singapore, and all the boys on the ship, they said, "You're a natural, you'll get out." I mean, I didn't even want to get out, or I didn't want to stay in. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I remember going to the psychiatrist in Singapore, and he said it was suffering from, like, I couldn't do what I was told. He was talking about resentments, but in them days I didn't know what resentments were, and didn't know what anger was and all that. And but he was saying to me, "You're no good in the Navy. We'll discharge you. We'll discharge you medical, because you're like, you can't do as you're told. You can't get on with people." And so he discharged me out of the Navy, and I thought, well, that's it. I won't have to cut my hair. I won't have to all that there. Like in the Navy, you had to like keep yourself very clean, and you couldn't grow a moustache, or you had to grow a beard, or like. And so I thought to myself, well, I see these magazines of the Rolling Stones, and they had like flared jeans and long hair and moustaches and all that. And I thought, well, that's what I'll do. I'll grow my hair long, and I'll smoke this dope, and I'll be going around and going, "Hey man," and all that, and everything's cool and all that there. And but that was the idea. That was what I thought. Other people were having all this, like enjoying themselves and relaxing and all that. And I thought, because I was in the Navy, I couldn't relax, and so I had all these ideas, if I moved on somewhere else, that everything would be alright. And when I got out of the Navy, I started smoking dope, and I took LSD, and that wasn't what I thought was going to happen. And I ended up in a mental hospital on this LSD, and was paranoid, and like. I remember lying in the mental hospital the next day after taking this LSD, and I could see my mother, like in the clouds. She had died 2 weeks before, and she was like clawing me in the clouds, she was going, and all that there. And I thought, this is horrific. And like, and I had all the memories of my mother, and all the fear, and the childhood stuff, because my mother was. Used to put this fear in the, and it all come out on the LSD. And my mother used to roast a poker up in the fire, and threaten to like burn you with this poker. And I was terrified. And but I can see that my mother just wanted to frighten you. She just wanted to like make you do exactly what she wanted you to do to get peace. And because I've done that with my children, I've tried to terrify them to get peace. And I can see she didn't really mean, like, she was trying to frighten the shit out of you. And so like all this stuff come out on these, they say LSD is a truth drug. and all my feelings come up on this, and it terrified me. And then I drank more because it was full of fear, and in fact, I developed more fears of heights and paranoia, and I didn't have any fear of heights when I was a kid. I would have, like when I was in the Navy, I was in helicopters with no doors in them and all that, and it didn't frighten me. But as soon as I took this LSD, overnight I become like paranoid and full of fear, and crossing bridges, I'd be running across the white lines and all that there. And when I was in the withdrawals from drink, I was terrified. And but when I left the Navy and started drinking, taking drugs and all that there, I had this idea that if I got married, I would be alright. People would think it was normal, and if I had a child and all that there, because I see these people walking down the road like married with a pram and a child and all that there, and the wife, and going shopping, and I thought that's what would help me. So I got married to this girl, and met her in Dublin, and she was an American girl, and I thought that will make me look good. And after a year, it was worse, because if you do something to make you look well for the wrong reasons, it doesn't work. And I was more insane because I was drinking more, and I knew this getting married, having children and all that there didn't fix me. But I can only see that in hindsight. And I lived in Dublin, and I was like begging, shoplifting, all sorts of things, squatting, drinking, taking drugs. And I remember I was introduced to AA in Omagh. There was a guy called Donald McBride, and I think he's an old timer now, but I remember a psychiatrist brought me out to his house, and I was I wasn't married at the time, I was getting married, and he was saying to me, you can't live on fresh air and all that, and you can't, if you're drinking, getting married and all that there. And he was telling me he used to beat his wife, and he done all these crazy things and all that there. And I thought, well, I'm not married yet, I haven't beaten my wife yet, do you know what I mean? And I couldn't see ahead that I would end up doing the same things, and I didn't actually know what he was talking about, and was brought there by the psychiatrist from the mental hospital I'd been in previous years before, and by this Dr. Hearn, and he was an alcoholic. I remember my father saying this Dr. Hearn was an alcoholic, and the doctor, GP that I went to, I knew he was an alcoholic, and but I didn't think I was an alcoholic. And, so that was my first introduction to AA, and I left there and carried on drinking, and I think that had sown the seed, and I carried on drinking, and went from Dublin to London, and my wife was 6 months pregnant, and we went on the boat, and I knew if I didn't leave Dublin with all the drinking and drugging, that I would die there. And I thought, I've got to get away from Dublin, otherwise I won't stop drinking. I've got to get away from the people I'm hanging about with and all that, and so they're all drug addicts and shoplifters, and same as myself, alcoholic and selling drugs, and all things like that. And arrived in London, and had no place to live, and I went to the Irish Centre, and they couldn't help me, and ended up squatting down on Latchmere Road in a squat, and there was no hot water. There was no. I couldn't find how to get the water on. I felt as if I didn't know where I was. Was taking drugs, drinking. I didn't know what time of day it was or what season it was or my memory at all from taking LSD and sleeping tablets and smoking dope and all sorts of things like that. There, anything that could keep me calm would take. And in fact, I hated this LSD, but as soon as I got a drink, I'd be taking more and all that. There, I didn't know what was wrong with me, and because I had horrendous trips on that, and it was all insanity. And I remember my wife was pregnant, and the social workers started coming in the hospital, and they were trying to help us, and they were telling me that they can't live like this in a squat, and can't bring up a child and all that there, and so I didn't want to hear what they were saying, and I thought there was nothing wrong with it. And I was in a squat and used to cook on a electric fire turned upside down, and I had the gas connected up with a bicycle tube, and all that sort of stuff, and it was terrified. When I woke up in the morning, I think the house could have blown up or whatever, and so I used to take these risks, and I wouldn't pay any rent or like electric or gas, and I thought it was a great life behind it all, like smoking, dope, drinking, and I was actually a vegetarian. I used to once a week. I used to get these soya beans and vegetarian stuff, and like once I got me dough money once a week, and I was living in Cuckoo Land, like brown rice and all that there once a week, and the damage I was doing to myself with the drink and all that there, and all I done was listen to music and Pink Floyd and the Who, Tommy, Pinball Wizard and all that. There used to sit drinking and all that, and with all these other head cases. I mean, I never thought about my son or my wife or how they were gonna like. I mean, the guilt behind it all, the guilt was killing me. And, but these social workers give me money, and I drank the money. I got 50 quid, and then the second time they give me a mother care voucher, and I thought, well, I remember thinking if I took this down to mother care, if I got some young girl, she might give me like some money back with the if I get some. I remember thinking I'd get a pair of socks and asked her to give me the 48 quid change. I could buy a drink, and but I actually got 2 quid back, and I had to buy 48 quid. I managed to get 2 quid for a bottle of wine, and see, I didn't care about buying my son. My son was in Springfield Hospital in the baby unit with my ex-wife, and I didn't care about the clothes because I thought, well, he'll get clothes anyway. Somebody will give him clothes, and so I'd actually drank the 50 quid, and the shame and all of the waiting up, and so that was I think that was about the end of my drinking, and I remember the social workers put me in and it was a mother and child unit, and it was an experiment in them days, like over 28 years ago, and they put me in there with these unmarried mothers and single parents and people with problems with alcohol and drugs and broken homes and all that there. But it was all women with children, and they decided to put me in there with my son, and agreed to sign this piece of paper saying that I wouldn't drink, I wouldn't take any drugs, and that, and I hadn't been to AA, and I didn't know that I was mentally ill, and I had all these fears, and I was in this place with children and single parents, and some girls had children were only 13 and 14 and all that there, and I had to wash dishes with them and all that there, and I remember there was these big knives, and I thought I was gonna like stick them with the knives and all that there, and I was throw the knives down, run out, and think what's wrong with me, and see I hadn't been to AA, and I hadn't heard people saying these things, so I had all these things in my head, and I couldn't understand it, and I couldn't tell anybody, and I remember going up to Springfield Hospital where my wife was, and this unit allowed me out once a week to see my wife, and I hadn't had a drink for a week, and I had that experience before where I didn't drink for a week, and when I started drinking I felt so sick, and I had to wean myself back into the drink, and it took me about a week to get back into drinking, and but I remember going up to Springfield Hospital, and I thought, well, I'll just nip into the alt license. Nobody will know I'll have 2 cans of McEwen's lager. And I remember sitting on a bench outside Springfield, and I remember drinking this can of McEwen's lager, and I was out of my head, but I wasn't drunk, but it was like torturing people, was saying to myself, like, I'm not talking to myself here. I'm serious. I'm going to get these social workers and I'm going to torture them. And I was saying to myself, I'm serious. I'm going to carry this out. And there's nobody else there. And the next morning when I woke up, I thought, Jesus Christ, what was all that about? And I thought, I'm doolally. When I drank this stuff, it was doolally, it was talking rubbish. It was like going all over these people that I was going to kill them and all that there, and people that, I mean, I've seen people over the years like talking to themselves and all that there, and I thought, when I start doing that, it's time to stop drinking. And that's what I was doing. It was like going over all the resentments on this can of beer, and I couldn't believe it. I thought, Jesus. Anyway, the next day I thought I better get to AA and get this sorted out, because I knew that if I didn't get some of this stuff out of my head, I would start shouting it out in the street, because I've actually heard people shouting all this stuff out in the street. I remember in Dublin I was drinking with this boy, and he was always well dressed in a suit and all that, and I remember one time he came into Stephen's Green and he was like shouting at everybody and all that, and he was trying to light 2 cigarettes at the same time, and he was stamping them out and all that, and I thought, Jesus Christ. I said, I'll end up like him. Like, I had a fear that I'd crack up one day, and that's what was happening. I had all these fears and phobias, and I couldn't, was housed in a high-rise block of flats, and kept thinking I was going to jump out of the window. And, but anyway, I got to AA, and the the first meeting I went to was in the Clapham Common, and when I got there, it was a rainy day and I had no cigarettes and I couldn't get a dog end, and I waited till everybody went into the meeting, and I went into this meeting. There was a Scotch guy doing the secretary, and he kept throwing me cigarettes, and I kept smoking, and my wife was in Atkinson Morley, in the psychiatric unit in Atkinson Morley, and I just left there, and I begged her to give me 40 pence for a kind of Carlsberg special. And, I even cried to get this. She wanted the money for cigarettes, and I was crying to get this money. It's all an act. And, but I got this can, and as I was coming down the road in Wumble, and my jacket caught in the fence, and the can went all over the place, and I didn't even. I see it going down through the tarmac. And, but I went to this meeting. I thought I better get to AA. I better go to meetings and get myself sorted out. And that's where I ended up at Clapham Common. And I remember Clapham George was there. He was an old timer, and Mick Devan and all them boys. And I remember thinking, like, identified with what people were sharing. Although I couldn't really listen because I was in the DTs. And, but the next day I walked all the way over to, I got a where to find, and I just was the day card. And I remember walking all the way over to Tower Hill. I walked from Battersea to Tower Hill, and there was a meeting on Tower Hill, and I had no cigarettes, and the one that blown all the tobacco out of the cigarettes, every dog in I went to pick up was empty, and I thought, I'll get a cigarette in the meetings. And I remember like washing the dishes after the meeting, thinking somebody will give me a cigarette, and nobody did. Nobody gave me a cigarette. And I thought, I will have washed the dishes for nothing. And anyway, I walked all the way back to Earl's Court, and I remember I was starving with hunger, and had nothing to eat for days, and I was hallucinating and everything. And I remember I stopped at Sloane Square, and I see these Kentucky chicken boxes. I see them sitting at these summer seats in Sloane Square outside Peter Jones, and like I thought maybe they'll have left some chicken in the boxes. And I remember sitting there for half an hour and homing in these boxes, and when I opened the boxes up, there was nothing. There was no chicken left, and it was all just bone. Somebody must have been alcoholics that ate these chickens, because there was nothing left on them. And I thought, this must be what self-pity is. And I thought, like, all the money I've spent and drank and all that there, now I'm sitting here like opening somebody's chicken boxes, like trying to get the scraps. And I thought, this is what they're talking about in the meeting, self-pity. I thought, all the money I spent, all the people that abused and used, and now here I am. And I walked to Earl's Court. There was a meeting in Earl's Court, and there was a guy in the chair, and called Tom. He was saying that he got a job in AA making the tea, and I thought he had a permanent job making the tea, and I thought, geez, maybe I'll get a job making tea. And but it was only once a week on a Friday night. And but anyway, I kept going to meetings, and I kept like meeting people. And I remember I went to on a Saturday morning, I was sitting outside the graveyards up in Streatham, and I had a where to find, and I was looking at this where to find, and I thought, well, these people in AA are fantastic. They're gonna like get me a job. They're gonna look after my son. They're gonna like do all these different things for me. Do you know what I mean? This AA is fantastic, and people in AA did. People helped me and all up there, and but they helped me to do it myself. I thought they were gonna do it for me, and I thought I'd fall on my feet here, and but they did. I remember thinking like in the where the finds was like names like Brendan, phone Brendan, and phone Sean. It was all Irish names, and I can imagine myself. I was sitting in the graveyard with nothing to eat, and I remember thinking of phoning this Brendan, and I'd phone him up and say, "Hello, Brendan's Tosh," and him saying, "Ah, Tosh, come round," and he was telling the wife to put the roast beef on and Yorkshire pudding. Do you know what I mean? And the water was running down my teeth, and I was thinking, these AAs is great, and it was all fantasy. It was all like an illusion, and but that's what happened. People didn't get the roast beef and Yorkshire pudding, not in the way I was thinking, but all these things come, and I remember I'd been in prisons and been up in the Old Bailey and all sorts of places like that there, and I remember going for a job on London Transport, and I had to fill these references in, and had to get somebody in AA to give me a reference, because I wouldn't have got this job only for the goodwill of people in AA. And I remember asking this guy who was my sponsor, me Jimmy, and I said, "Could you give me a reference, Jimmy? I've got an application form here for London Transport." And he said, "Oh, what do you want on the reference?" And I said, "Well, just put down you know me and all that." And I remember he put down on the reference that he knew me for 10 years, a good character. And the hair was standing on my head. I thought, Jesus, these AAs are great. Do you know what I mean? Like, and where else would you get a reference for a job? People, I mean, he only knew me for like 6 months or so. And, but he knew that I was serious about stopping drinking, and he must have known that I was willing to do anything. And so he gave me this reference, and he had a sponsor who was also called Big Jim, and I remember asked this Big Jim for a reference, and this guy was an architect, and he had a big briefcase, and he took out this headed paper, and he said, "I know this man for 10 years, good character." And I mean, the hair was standing on my head. I couldn't believe it. I thought, this is great. And I got the job in London Transport, and because of these two references. See, these are the things I forget, the goodwill of AA people, and people that fed me and kept me going, and I stuck that job out for a year, and I remember they gave me a suit and a peak cap, and they gave me a wee book to write things, notes in it, and I was like, I worked in the Northern Line as a railman, and also was collecting the money, was standing in to collect the money, and I remember when I was standing at the bury collecting money, there used to be these people that would come by, and they would sort of look twice, and they'd say, "Tosh," and I would say, "Yeah." And they'd say, "Jesus, what's happened to you?" And I would say, "I'm in AA now," and I'd short hair, and I was all dressed up, and I couldn't believe it, like, because one time, like, when they seen me, it was like long hair and all that sort of stuff, and earrings, and scruffy dressed like a hippie and all that, and so they were amazed when I said, I'm going to AA now, I'm an AA, I don't drink." and they couldn't believe it. And I remember giving out newcomers packs because all the alcoholics used to end up in Morden, and I used to be doing a night shift there, and I used to give all these alcoholics newcomers packs, wear the fines, and tell them to go to AA and all that there. And now I'm on a mission where at one time I'm like a good advertisement for drugs and drink and all that there. Now I'm telling everybody this drink and drugs is evil and all that, and I've gone from one extreme to the other, and getting involved in AA, making tea, 12-stepping people and all this sort of thing, and all these things kept me sober. And as time went along, I was on a journey of discovering who I was, and when I was 5 years sober, I had another child to save the marriage, Lizzie. She's 22 now, and when I was doing a chair one time at a meeting, and everybody said what a great chair and all that there, and I was walking in air, and I went home, and ended up battering my wife, and she ended up in a battered home for like battered wives, and I was amazed that this happened, because I thought, like, for years I was telling my wife that I'd stop drinking, I'd go on holidays, I would get new cookers, new beds and all that there. I did all this stuff, and promised all this stuff and all that there, and now I was angry, and I didn't know I was angry. This was the first thing that really took me back. I thought, Jesus, what's the matter with me? I'm crazy. I felt like an animal. I had to go back to the meetings and say what happened. I was really taken back. It really shook me up. And I thought, there's something not right with me. I'm covering things up. And so I realised I wasn't the person that was making out to be. I was suppressing all my feelings. I was like full of fear, and I didn't know it. And after 10 years, I got divorced, and after 10 years, I went into the job centre to look for a job, and I wasn't feeling that well that day, and I had a job, I had a good job, and I got into a punch up in the job centre, and there was a whole things happened, and that brought me down to earth as well. I think that was the best day of my sobriety when I look back at it now, because it brought me down to earth. It was another stage where the journey I could see, like, that I'm covering myself up, I'm suppressing all my anger, and it's all a front, and because I've done a fourth and fifth step, and I've done all these amends and all that there, but it was intellectually. I read all the stuff on literature and all that there, but now my feelings was coming up, and I was feeling very angry, and stuff was coming back, and so that was the best day of my sobriety. It brought me down to earth, and the next day it was instead of, like, when I was driving along, not letting people out and all that there, was going like letting people out, and was where I was working as a bricklayer, I was like saying excuse me and all that there. See, it brought me down to earth, that was able to treat people like human beings. Like, I was coming into the meetings saying to everybody, "All right, mate, you had a nice day" and all that there. And but outside, I wasn't practicing in all my affairs. I was angry, and but the funny thing is, I didn't know I was angry. I didn't know I was full of fear, and all this had to come out. This was another stage in my recovery where all these things started coming up, and my childhood started coming up more and more. And I remember when I was 7 years sober, I thought, well, I can't. I used to tell people at the meetings that my father and mother were lovely people, which sort of subconsciously I did think they were lovely people. But when I was 7 years sober, I thought, well, hang on, I don't feel that. When I'd go home at night, I'd think that my mother was evil, and my father was like drank all the money, and all this sort of stuff, and I didn't feel that they were nice people, and I had to let the feelings come up and realise that that it suppressed all my childhood, and I was saying to God, "Can you show me something good about my mother?" And was racking my brains because I actually couldn't see anything good about this woman who brought me up. And one of the things that came into my head was that she made good chips. And I thought, Jesus, the woman, like, not only did she make good chips, that opened the door. When I was willing to look at some of the good things about my mother, all these other things started coming in. My mother made chips, she made wheaten bread, soda bread, treacle bread, apple tarts, trifles. See, these are all the things that I'd forgot, because one bad thing blanks out all the good. See, and it took me 7 years to look at some of the good things about my mother, and I started to see that the woman, like, she knitted blankets, she knitted gloves, balaclavas. Every time I talk about my mother, something else comes out, and some of the good things. And when I was a wee boy, I went into a shop, and this woman said that you're Alice's son, and I felt so embarrassed. And this woman was saying, your mother's a lovely woman, and she knits all these blankets, and does all this good stuff and all of that. And I wanted to say that, no, that's not my mother. And but you see, that only come back in sobriety. I was ashamed of my mother, and I'd suppressed all this stuff, and I could only see the bad things. And as it went on, every time I think of my mother, I think of more good things, and which outweighs all the resentments and stuff like that. And so now I see my mother in a different light, and my mother was mentally ill. I think she had ECT treatment, and she was in mental hospitals, and so for me to see where my mother come from, I had to look at her mother, my granny, and all that. And my granny was always angry and shouting, and my mother always shouted at me, and like she was always full of anger, suppressed anger. She used to beat the crap out of you and all this sort of stuff. And so I could start to see where my mother come from, and my father come from, and then I could let go and forgive them, and see these things that I couldn't see, because all I was doing was self-centered, thinking of myself. All I'd done all my life was thinking of myself, and I think it takes a long time for these things to come up, and to see where other people come from, because all I could see was where I come from, and nothing ever worked out for me. I was always full of self pity, and I remember when I was a boy, my father said to me, "No matter what you get, you're never happy." And he was implying that I was getting something, but really, I was getting nothing, and he was conning me because he drank all the money, and he was trying to con me were his guilt. Like, and I was thinking, well, if you hadn't drank all the money, we could have had new bicycles and all this like normal people. And but it took me years to realise that all these things that I was chasing, like in sobriety and all my life, was got involved in relationships. I thought they're gonna make me happy. Cars, bicycles, houses, and all these money, and but it's taken me a long time to realise that these things don't make me happy. If I'm not happy from the start, then material things won't make me happy. And I remember when I come into AA that people used to say that it's a spiritual program. If you get the spiritual part of the program right, that all these things will come. Like, and I can see that that's right today. But it's taken me a long time to realise that, and to put the spiritual part first. And when I realised that everything that I got never made me happy. And today I'm happy with nothing. And I mean, that is a miracle. Anyway, I'll close there, and thanks very much for listening to me.